All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about A.J. Brown and him shutting down trade rumors. So I know, because I know that's been something that's been talked about, um, you know, this year. Well, I guess now technically last year. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But regardless, that's something that's been discussed. And so he basically, kind of shut that down. Um, you know, he wants to stay in Philly. He talked about how he wants to be here. I mean, he really has been a key contributor to this team since they acquired him. It made Jalen Hurts a better quarterback. And listen, I understand people criticize Jalen Hurts, but it's with a lot of these quarterbacks. You want to surround your quarterback with as much talent as possible. You go back to Hurts' first season, like as the full-time starter, because I know back in 2020, when they benched Wentz and they went to Hurts, obviously, he got thrown in midseason, showed you he could play a little bit. Then he became the full-time starter in 2021 when they moved off of Wentz. But, you had Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, you had Goddard. You were missing a number one wide receiver Devontae Smith looks like he can, now looks like he could be a number one wide receiver. But I guess, you wanted somebody else to complement Devontae Smith. And, so did I say somebody else? But whatever. The point is, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, that's been a great 1-2 combination. And the first year that Hurts was the full-time starter, they were running the ball a lot. And, then you get A.J. Brown, and the offense took it to the next level. And since A.J. Brown has come over, these first 2 years that he's been in Philly, 88 receptions in 2022 for 1,496 yards and 11 touchdowns. And then in 2023, he had 106 receptions for 1,456 yards and 7 touchdowns. So he really has been great since he's come over to Philly. And again, like I said, Jalen Hurts' numbers, got better from the first full year that he was a starter to now. In 2021, he had 16 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, 3,100 yards passing. Then it jumped up to 3,700 yards passing, 22 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. And then this past season, 3,858 passing yards, 23 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. So, yeah, he did turn the ball over a lot more this year, which is something to be a little concerned about. But, listen, the Eagles as a team, it just they weren't the same that they were the previous year. And, yeah, I guess you definitely are concerned a little bit where, you see Hurts is turning the ball over more. You go back to the playoff game, A.J. Brown didn't play. A.J. Brown got hurt in the game against the Giants in the regular season. He didn't even play in the game against the Bucs. So they definitely missed him. But, listen, this speculation has been going on for a while. You go back to the regular season game against the Bucs where you had A.J. Brown, on the sidelines with Jalen Hurts, and he looked like he was upset because he wasn't getting the ball enough. And that's kind of where some of that speculation on does he want to be here, that was one of the, reasons for that. But, he says he wants to be in Philly. And listen, Philly, they got new coordinators, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. I think they're going to bounce back next year. I think Hurts has to decrease the amount of turnovers. 15 interceptions is not good. So they're going to have to figure that out. And also, we'll see what happens at the running back position because, you have DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, and Boston Scott. I believe they're all free agents. So they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do running back-wise. And on top of that, you're still waiting on, is Jason Kelce going to retire? Is he not going to retire? It's still up in the air on whether he is going to do that or not. So, yeah, the Eagles still have some question marks, going into the offseason. But at least they know that their wide receiver is he's all in. He wants to stay in Philly. And again, he's helped Jalen Hurts out. Made Jalen Hurts a better quarterback. I know Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown a ton of touchdowns, but I mean, in 2022, they were one of the better offenses in the league. And, they got to the Super Bowl. A.J. Brown scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So, he's an important piece. And, this is going to be a big year for them. This is going to be big for Nick Sirianni because I know I talked about, the stuff that went on the sidelines when their security guard got banned from the sidelines and Nick Sirianni, had, problems, controlling his emotions and getting in fights with players and other coaches. So, the Eagles, we'll see if they're going to be able to bounce back. And, I think right now their biggest competition in the division is Dallas. And Dallas, played well against them both times. I mean, the first game, Dallas could have easily won. They left points off the board. The second game, Dallas just, they looked like the much better team. So, that's their biggest competition right there for the division is Dallas. I just still can't believe. I mean, the team was 10-1, and then everything, they really just fell apart at the end of the season. But, it happens. And, we'll see how they respond to it next year. If they could, find themselves back in the Super Bowl. Well, first you got to get to the playoffs, and then you go from there. But, I think, if Jason Kelce officially retires, I've talked about it, that's going to really hurt them on the offensive side of the ball. Because I know Jalen Hurts has gotten some criticism on, well, look at all the talent that he has around him. What happens when that talent isn't there? What kind of quarterback is Jalen Hurts then? I guess we'll just have to find out if, he does lose a big piece on his offensive line. Because, again, it's not going to be easy to replace Jason Kelce. It's not. But, at least, he's got all his pass catchers. The running game, like I said, we'll see what ends up happening there. Because also the other thing, too, is, and I'll talk about this tomorrow, so it looks like none of the big running backs are going to get franchise tagged. So that means they're all going to be free agents. And a lot of those guys are probably going to be, changing teams, I would say. So that's something actually we'll talk about tomorrow. And DeAndre Swift is one of those guys. So I don't know, are the Eagles going to bring him back? I mean, I thought Swift did a nice job for them, but maybe they are going to decide to look elsewhere. I know A.J. Brown's former teammate Derrick Henry is one of those running backs. Maybe the Eagles want to bring him in. That's a possibility. Now that I think about it, I think that was probably somebody else. Definitely said that. But we'll just have to see. But yeah, I just I still just can't wrap my head around the collapse that the Eagles ended up having. But yeah, so I actually want to go back. So we'll actually take a look at A.J. Brown's stats from the first couple of games because he really, I don't think he really did anything, and that's why he was, getting upset at Hurts that he wasn't involved. So the first game against the Patriots, all right, so he had 7 receptions for 79 yards. Okay, that's not, not bad. Against the Vikings in week 2, he had 4 receptions for 29 yards. So I can understand his complaints there. And then against the Bucs, he had 9 for 131. So he got more involved. Yeah, he had 14 targets. But yeah, I again, early on in the season, it's just, I don't know. But yeah, then after that, after the whole thing with the Bucs, 131, 175 against the Commanders, 127 against the Rams, 131 against the Jets, 137 against the Dolphins, again, receiving yards. 130 against the Commanders again, 66 against Dallas, 1 reception for 8 yards against the Chiefs, 5 for 37 and a touchdown against the Bills, 114 against the 49ers, 94 yards against Dallas, again in Dallas, 56 against Seattle, 80 against the Giants the first time, 53 against the Cardinals, and then 9 against the Giants. But, of course, he got hurt towards the end of the game there. But, yeah, I mean, the first couple of games, wasn't a huge factor. And then, again, he gets into it with Hurts on the sidelines and, he had a big game, ended up having a big game there, and he went on a tear. But, you just never know with these receivers because a lot of them, they want the ball. They want the ball. They want to be impactful. But, I mean, listen, there's only one ball, and there's quarterbacks that are going to spread it around. So, but, at least, for Eagles fans and the Eagles themselves, they know that, their wide receiver, wants to stay. Because this is a good team. They just, for whatever reason, they fell apart. And, we'll see how they bounce back. And, if the end of the season was kind of a fluke. But, I mean, again, the division, it's really between them and Dallas. I mean, the Commanders are rebuilding. The Giants, I mean, they're still rebuilding, but they're, also, they're in the same spot as the Commanders, even though the Giants, still beat the Commanders. So yeah, I mean, it's really going to be between Dallas and Philly. And then the grand scheme of things, you look at the NFC, it's going to be a better conference. I mean, I still think the 49ers are the class of the NFC. I mean, they came close to losing in the playoffs before the Super Bowl, but that ended up not happening. But, listen, the 49ers did all that talking leading up to the regular season game against the Eagles, and they really backed it up. Especially Deebo Samuel, because Deebo Samuel was the one that really did a lot of the talking. They backed it up. They walked into Philly and 42-19 was the final score. So that changed the season for them. It really did. A lot of things just went wrong at the end. So again, we'll see what happens, but again, AJ Brown looks like he's going to be sticking around with this team. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. And that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, we are going to take another break, our second break of the show. And then when we come back, we will discuss another wide receiver backing his quarterback, talking about Justin Fields and that he wants, Fields to, be the quarterback moving forward. And that is what we will discuss when we come back from our second break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.